It was a fabulous session. Lots of very exciting projects here. So I have a few questions in mind, but we'll also intersperse from the audience. Actually, please finish your question, Colin.
The question's for the whole panel, although I was inspired by Digital Green. I guess the question is, in development work, there's always a trade-off between sort of bottom-up knowledge and top-down expertise. And in the original, as an example, in the original Digital Green model, I think what was so beautiful about it was that it's almost entirely focused on local knowledge that the farmers have and they're sharing between themselves. Now, I guess what I'm trying to understand is in the new model where you're trying to pick certain agricultural techniques that work well, how do you balance these two, these two trade-offs between a top-down approach and a bottom-up approach? I mean, just to give one example, I mean, some kinds of crops might not work in different regions. And so if I want to disseminate one particular agricultural practice, how do we not know that maybe it's not going to work in this new region? And maybe the farmers know that, but we don't know that. How do we kind of balance those two constraints?
Sure, I think it's a fair question. I think right from the beginning, we always said that we generate local knowledge in interaction with the farmers. It was never the stand that the knowledge that we are getting from the farmers is the knowledge that we are disseminating. Like in Andhra Pradesh, there's a lot of emphasis on what is called CMSA practices, community managed sustainable agriculture practices. And some of them are practices which probably needed vetting by a research institution. And we have collaborated with ECRISAT to basically vet those practices and say scientifically they should be right and that they should increase production. So it was always a consultation with the local farmers and with the research institution and experts. And it is the same kind of attitude that we would have going forward.
Just to add on to that, right? So in FarmBeats, exactly what we are trying to do is there are so many distributed local practices for each different region, which people still follow, but there are municipality or region level knowledge which is obtained from agriculture researchers. So finding a balance between these two is a hard problem. If someone can solve it, the problem of generating sustainable agriculture practice, right, would be solved. But I think the way forward, right, is kind of mixture of both. So in certain places, at least that's an approach which we have been taking. In certain deployments, we completely trust the farmer beliefs. And in certain places, we have been working with GKVK where they run hundreds of experiments each season, where they say, if you do this, this is what your yield would be. And if you use this crop and at this time if you sow, what's your yield would be. So it's a mixture of both. I don't think there is any like out of the box solution which one to pick.
Yeah, just to add that maybe not so applicable in agriculture, but in some of the other work that we've been doing in gender norms, for example, over there you might push a lot of top-down information, but when people talk about it, it gets reinforced in a much better way. So when people actually describe their own experiences that, well, I got married when I was 14 and I pledged that I will never get my daughter married now at 14, right? So those sort of stories, when other people hear those stories, they're able to relate to the message in a much stronger way. Because we call that context, that the message becomes more contextual and then also more complete because there might be new aspects that will come out.
About collaboration. So people might not realize, but all these successful projects are deep collaborations between technologists and social sector organizations. And we were just talking Digital Green is actually collaborating with both Mobivani and FarmBeats. And so my question was, what makes for a good collaboration between technologists and a social organization? I mean, Vinay, from your perspective, can you give an example of a collaboration that went well, maybe one that didn't go well? What's advice for technologists, what they should do, should not do, talking to Digital Green? Because I know you're inundated with requests. We have inundated you. Many other people approach Digital Green as a great person to collaborate with. What can they do to be a good collaborator? And likewise, Adi, I think Mobivani has dozens, hundreds of NGOs that that use it for social sector campaigns. What have you learned from the School of Hard Knocks? How do you approach an NGO? What is compelling for them? And Akshay, I know as well, is working on that.
So collaboration with a technology firm, right? Digital Green is in part a technology firm as well, right? In fact, Ricken is more of a technology guy than
or researchers, I could say.
research.
Research versus
Right.
practice. Then.
I mean, our experience really has been that we've had great collaboration with you guys. We've had with Awaz Day, and I think and we have not had any collaboration so far which we had with Farm Radio International in Africa, which I would say hasn't worked. It has always worked on the technology side. At times we have found that it might have had some irritants when it came to contracting. So it has to do more with the contracts team in that organization and the contracts team in our organization, and the way deliverables are kind of agreed upon. But I don't think there has been a situation where we've found that any particularly with technology firms, and we've had some bad experiences with other collaborators, but not with technology.
Yeah, please.
I think one of the problems that comes up is actually when technologists come up with a shiny object, does it actually solve a real problem, and does it address a real need? And I think that's implicit, I think, in Bill's question. Yeah. Sometimes there are solutions that are proposed, but that don't solve problems that really matter.
Yeah, that at times is is an issue, but I don't think when you are actually getting into collaboration, you get into that collaboration with the specific need that you have, and then try and identify a collaborator who is, if not 100%, at least 95% is willing to take that up. And I think by and large, we have not had, now actually, to be very frank, we are also implementing a large USAID funded project on nutrition. There we are bringing in complementary ICT platforms, and there we are really having a tough time. And after 1 year of, he knows it, with Gramwadi we are now going to work there, it's been a struggle. Just because we are not getting exactly what you're saying.
You can optionally add, or if you want to pass this.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's a important question, and we've been touching upon, some of these aspects in terms of how do we strike these collaborations or sort of multidisciplinary collaborations, and it's not easy at all. In our own journey, when we started Gramwani, we were like a team of 3 engineers, right? And we just thought we'll build technology and it'll change the world, right? Just like, put technology in the hands of people and that's it. But then we realized that, well, just driving the adoption of the technology or then perfecting it, figuring, right? There's so many different things. So now in our company, the technology team is the smallest team. We have a very large community mobilization team. We have a very large content team. Then a sort of project management team which has to understand every vertical. And that's why it becomes very difficult for us to find people who can sort of understand all these things. And that was at the cutting edge, that when technology has actually not been used in development. So the way we sort of learned it was by our own experience, and what's been very good is that the social sector is a very nice sector to work in because people are open to talking to you. I mean, NGOs, right, they give time. You go there, you say, well, I'm an engineer, I want to do something. They'll say, yeah, okay, come, let's talk about it. Which is not the case in many other disciplines, honestly. People are busy with their own stuff. And but the other way also is challenging, right? Because the NGOs and social sector organizations don't have a very good understanding of technology. Or very often they just think that the same way, right? That we'll deploy technology and it'll magically work. Whereas actually just to embed technology within an organization is a big challenge. So those are just some, and that's where some of our collaborations with Gramwani's collaborations with other NGOs have also failed. Because in many cases, some of these essential ingredients were not taken into account.
Sure, Venkat. Shout out, yeah.
this may be a bit of a repetition of some of the previous questions, but let me ask it anyway. The three of you, to me, represent three different points in the space. FarmBeats and Akshay talked about data-driven agriculture, so measure everything, and drive decisions based on that. I think Adi, you talked about more the social process of disseminating information. So maybe one farmer tells the other what worked for him or her, and so on. And Digital Green is about curating content with perhaps the help of experts and disseminating it. So I'm just wondering, if you want to actually solve the agriculture problem or in some other domain, health or something, which approach is the right one? Because these are all. Do you need detailed data like Akshay is trying to collect, or you not need it?
So I think agriculture problem is probably huge, and we need collaboration with each of them for specific situations, and that's exactly what Digital Green is doing. We are collaborating with Gramwani and also with them in Bihar, in Jharkhand, with them in AP, to solve specific issues that we have identified. But I think agriculture is a huge area which needs a lot more.
Can I actually just build on the question slightly? If forgive me, Venkat. Workshop on AI and social good. There's a hammer and there's a nail. There's hammer is AI, nail is social good. Good projects need to put those two things together somehow. Ideally in direct alignment. You have the perfect AI for the perfect social good. I think in practice, it doesn't start like that. You normally start leaning one way or the other. You start with a technology. Maybe some of the things described are starting more with technology. You try to find the nail for your hammer, and maybe you can search and you can find just the right nail. Other projects start the other way around. Digital Green, Rick encamped for 6 months in a village without any agenda. He was there observing, and he came back with the idea. So, any perspectives? If we're solving the problem, if we're bringing these things together, to get the best out of you, which one should it be, or how do you connect? How do you connect the two sides?
Yeah, my little sense about. So I've been working on FarmBase from past 1 year. So from my experience, right? So we started purely from technological standpoint, like what kind of solutions can we develop, which is low cost, easily accessible to everyone. That was our key goal to start off with. As we proceeded with this goal, right, we realized that we are not domain experts. We need agricultural farmers, the agronomists, to provide us input. That's why we started more and more collaborations, specifically in this context, right? Digital Green provides content with farmers about farming practices. These are well disseminated, but with respect to filling up the loop, right? So so they can provide videos, but one of the key things which they are interested is also is the farmer actually following that practice. To do that, right? FarmBeats is integrated. That's one of the key things which in this collaboration, at least what we're exploring is there are certain practices, the video content has been shared, whether these practices are followed. If followed, what's the advantage? And can this information be disseminated with other farmers so that you can get more and more sharing of practices?
Forgot I was going to say something.
But I can only say that, listening to so many presentations today and having a sense of the kind of data that we've created, I think I already have several ideas. Earlier when Amit said, you have to come and speak, I said, we don't do any artificial intelligence stuff. He said, you just say what you do, and we'll try and figure out. And I'm amazed that today, even with Milind and Eric's team and from Denver, the kind of stuff that you presented, I think would be very useful for us. So I do see a lot of possibilities emerging out of this workshop, and I think that's a great thing for me at least.
Someone who hasn't asked a question, maybe? Is there a question here?
It's maybe more of a comment than a question. It's a response a little bit to your thoughts about hammers and nails. So I think one insight from social science is that oftentimes very, very complex problems need multiple solutions. I think what can sound frustrating about that is that that sounds as if there is no solution. But it doesn't mean that there's no solution. It means that the solutions can be, in some sense, tailored or individualized. And so a more low-tech or high-tech solution to a particular problem, it may not be that one is better than the other, but in a particular moment in time, in a particular location, in a particular context, there may be more of a need for this data-driven approach or a more local knowledge sort of approach. And I think that some sort of integration of those ideas is really important to keep in mind.
Yeah, I think that's what Swasti was trying to say, right? So, not sure if they're still here, but I mean, the integrated model that they were talking about, right? So in the development space, that's one of the big challenges, right? That, okay, let's do health, or let's do agriculture, let's do nutrition, or let's use this. But ultimately, the problems are complex, and therefore, it's an integrated approach, or at least something more insightful that has to be done, rather than just one hammer for one nail. Maybe it's more
lots
difficult.
Lots of hammers, lots of nails.
Yeah.
Done. Last question.
So in about 10 years ago, we started work on this project called Aqua. Some of you may be familiar with that. Aqua stood for almost all questions answered. And we did the development for about 3-4 years and stopped at 2010 for a variety of reasons. Now still it's on the web, being questions are being posed, but more often than not, people are happy with what's already there. So most of the answers are there for people to pick up based on their keywords and other things that appear in the question. And the thing that I think the reason that it is still there is because over the years we kept the stakeholders as part of the decision making. For example, the Krishi Vigyan Kendra experts and the farmers. From day one, we talked to them, made them part of the design team, went back to them with the design and took the feedback and put it back into the final system. It took 3 years to get a polished version of it. Now, of course, technology has moved along, but the content is still visible for people to use for research and other purposes. I think the key success point there is involve the stakeholders from day one and keep them part of the team until you're, even after the product is out and being used. I think that's the reason for why it is still there being used.
Thank you.
Thanks for an amazing session. Big hand for them again. Thank all the speakers.